Good morning, everyone. My name is Reese Proctor, and I'm going to be presenting the technical and ethical aspects of the Air France Flight 4590 crash. The Concorde was a supersonic turbo-powered passenger airliner that was designed, developed, and manufactured under a joint program between France and Great Britain. The Concorde was flown for the first time in 1969, and it was entered into commercial operation in 1976. On July 25, 2000, the Concorde was chartered by Peter Dillman Cruises to fly 100 passengers from Charles de Gaulle Airport in Paris, France, to John F. Kennedy Airport in New York. It was noted that the Concorde was weighed several tons overweight on July 25, 2000. This would cause the center of gravity to shift, and since the Concorde was such a streamlined airplane, there was very little margin of error when it came to the center of gravity, so this large shift would have a big impact later on. Also, it was discovered that the reverse thrust mechanism needed to be replaced, so Air France contacted the manufacturer when it was discovered that there were no new parts available, and the manufacturer said that the Concorde would be fine to fly to New York. However, the pilot, Christian Marty, demanded that the repair take place. So, a reverse thrust mechanism was taken off of a different airplane and fitted onto the Concorde. This repair delayed the flight by over an hour. During this time, a Continental Airlines DC-10 took off using the same runway just 5 minutes before the Concorde would take off. During takeoff, the DC-10 lost a titanium alloy weather strip on the runway. Standard takeoff protocol for the Concorde was that there was to be a pre-flight runway inspection. However, on July 25, 2000, this inspection did not take place. I think it did not take place either by complacency of the workers, because there had been no flight crashes of the Concorde in the past, or because the flight had already been delayed over an hour and they were trying to hurry and get the flight back on track. The Concorde began down the runway, and when the Concorde was going approximately 204 miles per hour, it struck the titanium alloy weather strip, which then caused the tire to blow, and a piece of the tire was then launched under the airplane and hit where fuel tank number 5 was located. This sent a shockwave through the fuel tank, which then ruptured the tank, allowing gas to begin spilling out. This gas was then ignited by either heat from the engines or by an electrical arc on the landing gear. And if you look at this picture here, you can see the flames coming off of the Concorde from where the fuel had been ignited. And this happened with only 1.2 miles of runway left, and this was not enough time for the Concorde to come to a safe stop. So the only choice the Concorde had was to take off. Shortly after takeoff, the Concorde lost power to engines 1 and 2 and began to rotate asymmetrically to the left. This is where the center of gravity shift came into play. Soon after, the crew lost control and crashed into a nearby hotel, killing all 109 people on board the Concorde and 4 people inside the hotel. I blame Air France for this crash because they were the owners and operators of the Concorde, and they should have made sure that everything was being followed before the flight took off, such as the pre-flight runway inspection. And I think Air France valued money, and I think two values that coincide are time and reputation of the Concorde, because the Concorde was a supersonic turbo-powered passenger airliner that could go twice the speed of sound, and so if it got a reputation of having long delays, people would be less likely to book the Concorde. So I think that's why they were trying to hurry and get the Concorde back on track to keep the reputation in line. Also, I think Air France valued money because the Concorde was a luxurious airliner that had a higher fee than other airplanes and resulted in a higher yearly revenue for Air France. And I think that these are important values that Air France should have held, but they should have also valued they should have also valued safety. because the passengers on the airplane were trusting that Air France had a safe airplane for them to travel on. And so I would consider this to be a duty ethics case, because it was Air France's duty to make sure that the safety protocol was being followed, and they should never have allowed the Concorde to be overweighted to begin with. Also, another thing that could have been changed was the fuel tank design. I think the designers of the Concorde could have placed an air gap between the fuel tank and the outer shell of the airplane. So if something like this were to occur, where a piece of debris were to strike the underside of the Concorde, then there would be that air gap to allow the shockwave to dissipate partially before going through the fuel tank. And I think a moral lesson we can learn from this case is to always hold human safety paramount, and we can do this by designing better fuel tank systems and by following all standard safety protocols and following guidelines.